0.8% higher on all the indices. I mean, on Sensex and Nifty, and the midcaps not far behind.
The best case of Nifty really remaining range bound between sort of 9,900 and this 11,000.
You may end up between 4 to 5 lakh crores of package through loan waivers if it is done at all India level, as the Congress president has been saying.
It's turning out to be a solid start for the week to see the global markets.
The revival of the public sector banks, several steps have been taken. I must mention, several steps have been taken by the Reserve Bank of India.
Markets were holding as steady as can be at 10,800.
There was that wobble, but then the bears couldn't really capitalize on it beyond a point. So we've been largely range bound, though of course not having the momentum to really take it to the next level today.
Equities end the day off highs but still close in the green. The Sensex and the Nifty add 0.5% each, even as the Nifty fails to hold on to the 10,800 mark.
The Reserve Bank of India Governor Shaktikant Das says liquidity needs of the economy are largely being met. He affirms that the central bank will not like a situation of loose or excess liquidity. This, combined with higher crude oil prices, leads to a bond yield surge. NBFCs and PSU banks see red.
Private banks perk up in trade. Axis Bank, ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank lead the pack. On the other hand, stocks of Bandhan Bank and Grew Finance succumb to profit-taking. Sources says Bandhan Bank is all set to acquire Grew Finance in a share swap deal. This was first reported by cnbc TV 18.
Auto stocks sulk ahead of earnings season. Bajaj Auto, Hero MotoCorp, Eicher and Ashok Leyland all ended the red, essentially extending the losing streak. And of course, expectations of muted results. Bharat Forge was also down on dismal North America Class 8 truck orders for the month of December.
Tech stocks ride high after rupee slips in trade. Nifty IT index gains 1%, led by TCS, Infosys and Mindtree. Well, those were the top 5 headlines from Dalal Street on the first day of the week, when trading actually began in favor of the bulls, but the bulls didn't quite hold the initiative. Hello and welcome to Markets Today Talk Back, the show where we tell you everything that happened in those 6 hours in 5 headlines. I'm Lata Venkatesh, with me my colleague Prashant Nair. Hi Prashant.
Hi Lata. So 25 points off the lows, but 60 points off the highs. That's essentially where the Nifty finally left off. The next 30 minutes, we will talk about what happened, the drivers for the market. Our guests will take your questions. And to help us answer the questions, we have Gaurang Shah of Geojit Financial Services. We also have Ashwini Gujral joining us on the charts. Gentlemen, both of you, thanks very much for being here. As always, let's begin right at the start. What really took place in the market today? Radha.
Well, you summed it up nicely. The markets have ended 25 points in the green, but they are off 60 points from the day's high. But what were the events? The markets had very strong tailwinds. It was buoyed by positive global cues because you had strong US jobs data. Over the weekend, you had the Fed chairman, Jerome Powell, saying that whether it is balance sheet reduction or rate hikes, the Fed will watch the economy evolve very closely. Nothing is preset. And that again was read as very dovish. So you had Wall Street and Asia on fire. And of course, from Friday, you also had the 100 basis point CRR cut in China. All this was firing up the metal stocks as well in early trade. But the bulls, after taking the index all the way to 10,835 thereabouts, couldn't quite hold the initiative. Probably the profit-taking was led by the bond yields rising, and that is because crude was over 58. The governor was not sounding, the Reserve Bank governor was not sounding like he's going to be even more in a giving state. And there is result season ahead. And, after what you saw in terms of auto sales, anybody would want to take a little bit of profit before the results season begins.
Oh, absolutely.
But anything more you noted in specific stocks?
Yeah, a lot of stocks moving around, Lata. So in terms of sectors, by the way, everything, even mid-caps, small caps, everything came off quite a bit from the highs. Mid-caps and small caps at one point were looking like they would be in the red, but they managed to come up with small gains. Real estate, IT and pharma. Real estate and IT higher, pharma lower. That's essentially the sectoral breakup in terms of what we saw. Large caps which moved, Axis Bank was the top gainer, 3% or so. Bharti Infratel did well. Tata Motors was up about 2.5%. Grasim, Maruti and Titan were the other gainers. I mean, again, most of them off the highs. Titan, for example, at one point was up 3. It was up 1.5 by close. Under pressure, Indiabulls Housing. And actually, a lot of NBFCs came under pressure. Indiabulls Housing down almost 4.5%. Bajaj Finance, there was Yes Bank, which saw a sharp reversal. I mean, the high was 195. It left off at 187 today. Broader gains, BEML, Dredging Corp has come up, quite a bit. Some 30% in the last few trading sessions. NBCC was up about 3.6% off the highs. InfoEdge, again, a big move from 1400 to 1600 in 3 or 4 sessions flat. Dish TV was up 5%. Repco Home, a 6% pop. And there was Godrej Properties and Surya Roshni, which clocked big gains with decent volumes. And there were losses in, Page Industries, Ashok Leyland, Tata Elxsi. Report numbers tomorrow was down 2.5%. Indigo was down 2%. And then, the financials, DHFL, Piramal Enterprises, Grew Finance, Bandhan Bank, all seeing some selling.
Okay, yeah, of course, for Grew and Bandhan, it's probably the share ratio announcement indicating that the story that our colleague Nisha Podar broke is coming closer to fruition. Let's find out what our guests have to say about the day's proceedings and what to do tomorrow. First to you, Ashwini, your thoughts on the session today?
See, today we were supposed to rally with a gap up, but I think midway through the session and much before the upper end of the range, 10,950, the market started to turn and started to go lower. And by the end, I think the financials are also giving up their gains. It appears that we could possibly be getting into some sort of range-bound action, maybe 10,650 to about 10,950. And then, depending on the events and the results, etc., we may decide whether to have another attempt at higher levels or go through 10,650. But I would say today's day was a negative day where good news and a gap up because of that good news got sold into. So my sense is that the markets will be ready for some sort of correction going forward, given that most of the news is now out.
Okay, some correction may be in order, as Ashwini puts it. We move on to the second story for today. NBFCs and PSU banks bled after bond yields surged to a near 1-month high. Nifty PSU Bank lost about 0.5%, dragged by State Bank of India and stocks like Syndicate Bank. Meanwhile, on NBFC front, Indiabulls Housing, as we said earlier, was the biggest laggard on the Nifty. The boost in yields, the push-up in yields comes courtesy higher oil prices and RBI's belief that liquidity is ample. And the RBI governor also said it would not like a situation of excess liquidity, loose liquidity. Let's listen.
While dealing with the issue of liquidity, I would also like to say that this is something which the Reserve Bank is constantly monitoring and will take steps whenever there is a need to deal with the liquidity deficit if it is noticed. At the same time, I must also add that the Reserve Bank would not like a situation where liquidity becomes a kind of a loose money. Any infusion of liquidity will have to be very carefully considered and has to be need-based. So therefore, the caution and care has to be exercised by the Reserve Bank of India so that excess liquidity, which sometimes has certain adverse consequences, that is not created.
Okay, well, the governor also did not give away anything by way of special dispensation to NBFCs or even when the PCA banks will be removed out of PCA. Even on dividend, he said you will get to hear of it, but it looks like at best it can be a 30,000 crore dividend. Besides the governor's liquidity statement, the other point that has been weighing on the markets, the debt markets, is the fact that there can be a very big fiscal deficit next year or maybe even this year if the government were to announce a large farm package. Now, there are some news reports which say that the fund package is imminent. Our own reporters have said, our team has pointed out that the government is considering various packages like, extending more loans on the Kisan credit card, making the Fasal Bima Yojana a little more liberal. We spoke with the agricultural economist and former chairman of the Agricultural Prices Commission, Ashok Gulati, and he gave us some estimates of what an income transfer scheme can cost, what can a national loan waiver cost. All of them look like big bills. Listen in.
One thing is clear, the game now politically is not 20,000 crores or 30,000 crores. It is 2 lakh crores or 3 lakh crores or even more, because loan waivers, our estimates are that the loans outstanding in September 2018 were 10.5 lakh crores. And this is the banking sector. If you add the packs on that, primary agriculture credit societies loans outstanding, then you have about 12 to 13 lakh crores of loans outstanding. Now, how much you will cut corners, how much you fix the caps and so on and so forth, still you may end up between 4 to 5 lakh crores of package through loan waivers if it is done at all India level, as the Congress president has been saying. Now, this is a cheaper, but then this is a more stable and structured policy, but it has to be done every year.
Okay, Vineet Hirawat has tweeted in with his question on Can Fin Homes. He wants to know the long-term outlook for the stock. Ashwini, any thoughts on Can Fin Homes?
Well, he should hold on. Also, it's at its 200-day moving average. Accumulate. These 200, 250 shares will not make you rich. If you have an existing position, add on, make it larger, and once these controversies etc. are over, I would think it could easily get up to 1450, 1500.
You are speaking about Kotak. I'm sorry, maybe you didn't hear it right. We'll just set the audio right over there. Gaurang, let me come to you. The reason why we're talking about NBFCs is obviously because over the past 2-3 days, or in fact past week, the yields have gone up, and that's why this renewed possible problem for NBFC companies. How would you advise this gentleman on Can Fin Homes?
Thank you, Lata, and good evening to all of you all. Well, firstly, I think it's only prudent to stay with niche and marquee big names, as we call it, in the NBFC stroke diversified stroke housing finance companies. And the reason why we advise that is, relatively, the cost of borrowing funds for larger names is a little bit at a comfort zone compared to a lesser known or an unknown name in the NBFC category. So Can Fin Homes, well, it does feature in our positive universe as far as the HFCs are concerned, that is housing finance companies. The only problem, Lata, is that this stock in the housing finance sector has been an underperformer for the last 2 or 3 quarters because of disappointing earnings and with little bit of negative tailwind news flows. But we believe that this correction is all that is in the price, and with a long-term point of view, maybe about 18 to 24 months plus, one can definitely look at buying into Can Fin Homes.
Okay. Well, if you have fixed that audio with Ashwini, Ashwini, the question was actually on Can Fin Homes.
It's a can of worms. And, NBFCs for a while, people are overexposed, it'll go through a sell-off. And, once it's oversold, once everybody's out of their NBFCs, only then, Can Fin Home, etc. will go up sustainably. As of today, L&T Finance is a better stock, Bajaj Finance is a better stock. Stay in the top rung of NBFCs because the trouble does not seem to be over yet. Plus, bond yield, etc. are issues. It is not 2017, so I don't think Can Fin Homes will move in that fashion.
Okay, thanks for that, Ashwini. Stay away. That's the view coming in from Ashwini. The third headline today, unlike PSU banks, private banks performed well in today's trade. Axis Bank was up 3%, ICICI Bank, HDFC Bank, all actually were in the green. On the other hand, stocks of banks like Bandhan Bank and Grew Finance succumbed to some profit booking. There is also, of course, a deal which we've been discussing and our colleague Nisha has been reporting on. Remember, Bandhan is all set to acquire Grew Finance in a share swap deal. Nisha, who broke the story first, is actually standing by. Nisha, I mean, broadly, what is the blueprint of the share swap that you're actually picking up?
So first, I just got this information from sources with direct knowledge, Prashant, that the deal is going to be announced like later in the day, just a few hours from now. And that's what we are gathering. So any moment this entire deal announcement is likely. Of course, we broke the story a few days back that Bandhan Bank is looking to acquire Grew Finance by way of a merger. 3:5 is the reported share swap ratio, which is in line with the market price as well as the SEBI guidelines for the swap. Now, remember that what this will do is that Bandhan Bank, after the acquisition through a merger process, will manage to have its promoter shareholding come down from 82% to 60%, but they still have to reach that 40% mark to meet the RBI guidelines, which they have violated. On the other hand, HDFC Limited, which owns about 58% stake in Grew Finance, will land up owning 15.5% stake in the merged entity, which will require RBI permission. They will need to sell at least additional of 10% stake is what the understanding is. So these are important bits to look at, but important bit is that the market saw Bandhan Bank under pressure, especially after we broke this story, because market probably thinks that it could be an expensive buy just to meet the RBI guidelines. But on the other hand, they're also expanding in the housing finance business. For Grew Finance, the cost of capital and access to capital would become easier. So sources with direct knowledge sharing, the deal is likely to be announced in a few hours from now.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see. It does look like it is imminent. And I can understand the market getting cold feet on this kind of a purchase because the price to book for Grew works out to 13.5 times. That's a tall price to pay for, albeit an excellently run company with excellent growth and a very good fit for Bandhan Bank as well. But nevertheless, it's an expensive buy, and that explains the kind of reaction that you're getting on Bandhan Bank and, for that matter, even on Grew Finance. We take a break on that note. Let's leave you with some market opinion that we got from CLSA's Lawrence Belanco. Even as Wall Street was in the green and Asia followed suit, Lawrence Belanco thinks that you should be prepared for some bearish shocks.
I think it's a low probability event with the best case of Nifty really remaining range bound between sort of 9,900 and this 11,000 resistance zone. You can see basically over the past 2 months, the initial recovery off the October lows has failed at this 11,000 area on 3 occasions. You've got slowing upside momentum. So we think it's unlikely that we clear the 11,000 area. There's clearly a risk that we retest 9,900 and break below that and see the Nifty trade down to 9,000 by mid-2019. So I don't think you can rule that out. And looking at the broader trends, which are bearish across global equities, definitely a risk of retesting 9,900. If we take a step back and we just look at the global scenarios, that the Nasdaq being down 20% off its September peak, the S&P got 19% off its highs. We've really got the conditions here for a synchronized global bear market. And I think it's really the US that drives this sort of final 14 to 15% down.
Welcome back. You're still with us here on Markets Today Talk Back. Gaurang Shah and Ashwini Gujral are with us. They've been answering your questions. We are through with 3 of the top 5 headlines of the day. Let's move on to the 4th one. Auto stocks sulked ahead of earnings season. Bajaj Auto, Hero MotoCorp, Eicher, Ashok Leyland all ended the day in the red on expectation of muted results. Bharat Forge was the other big loser today. The stock lost out on dismal North America Class 8 truck orders for the month of December. Remember, this follows a pretty poor number in the month of November. My colleague Sonia Shenoy joins us now with all of the details. Over to you, Sonia.
Well, you know, this is the second month running that the numbers are very weak. So in November, everyone thought it was just a 1 month blip. But now 2 months running, the numbers have been under quite a bit of pressure. So if you look at it on a month-on-month basis, it's a 25% fall. On a year-on-year basis, it's almost a 45% fall that we've seen. And the graph indicates that the numbers have only been deteriorating. Now, CLSA has downgraded Bharat Forge to a sell from an outperform. They say that not just the US truck business, which after 5 years of an upcycle is starting to slow down, but even the India truck business is now decelerating. And put together, US plus India forms 45% of Bharat Forge's revenues. Not just that, because of the way crude prices have cooled off, you have their oil and gas and industrial export business, which has also been under pressure. In fact, we'll get CLSA's views up for you in just a bit. Apart from that, FTR, the company that reports this data, has indicated that for the next several months, the total orders, the North America truck orders, will remain on the lower side.
Okay, thanks for that. So a little under the weather, Bharat Forge, after that North American truck order news. Vineet has a question on Ashok Leyland. Okay, not on Bharat Forge. Vineet says he has 700 shares of the automaker, that's Ashok Leyland, which he had bought at 94 rupees a share. He wants to know if he should hold or exit. What would you say, Gaurang, to him?
Well, Lata, definitely hold on. In fact, we've been covering, beg your pardon, Bharat Forge from sub 40 or 45 levels. We have been revisiting our targets, and the last target was somewhere close to about 145, 155, which it achieved when it went to 165. And then you had the, overloading of 25 tonnage truck. You had issues with the scrappage policy not coming through with clarity, and of course, the correction last 2 months on fallback of weak numbers month on month. We remain positive with a long-term point of view, and I think close to about 90 rupees or thereabouts should be a floor. 125 to 130 is the target as of now on Ashok Leyland with a long-term point of view.
Okay, Ashwini, you too have a view that what Vineet should do with his shares?
See, the issue here is that Ashok Leyland is a cyclical, and that is something people don't understand. It came down to 80 the last time, there was a Euro 4 issue, and from 80 it went up to 165. So whenever it gets to this 80 to 90 type of zone, this is where you accumulate, and then you wait for good auto numbers, etc., and then try to get out at 165, 170. This time the issue is that the entire auto space is looking shaky, and whether it does bounce back from 165, 170 higher immediately, that remains to be seen. But if you accumulate in this 80 to 90 zone, chances are this is a fair risk-reward situation.
Okay, well, we move on to the last fifth and the last headline today. Technology stocks rode high after rupee slipped in trade. The Nifty IT index gained 1%, led by TCS, Infosys and Mindtree, each rising between 1 to 2% in trade today. We've got a question coming in on Wipro. Kumar has 48 shares of Wipro, which he purchased at 225 rupees. He wants advice both for the long term and short term. Let's take it to both Ashwini and Gaurang. Ashwini, your thoughts first?
Wipro is outperforming, although, the results, etc., are not blowout. But, 340 is the all-time high on Wipro. It's hardly at, I think, 325. So that way, once we get past this 340 zone, I think Wipro can start a fresh leg where, it could get up to 450, 460. What that news will be, I don't know, but it's clear on the chart that, somebody is accumulating Wipro. But as rupee is appreciating, etc., our macros are strong, US is kind of shaky, it may take a while. Hang on to this, keep a stop, say around 300, and I think this could be one of the outperformers.
Okay, well, I'm afraid we cannot get Gaurang on that, but that's Ashwini's opinion. Ashwini and Gaurang, thank you very much for joining us in this edition of Markets Today and taking all the questions of our viewers.
Well, that's it from all of us here, from Lata, me, the entire team. Thank you very much for watching.